Welcome to the Feminine Truth Podcast with Mary Miranda, a place where you can reconnect with your wild, cyclical, and fierce truth. I am Mary Miranda, a mentor, guide, healer, and intuitive coach. I guide women on a journey of remembrance, reconnection, and embodiment of their inner feminine truth. Join me each week to tap into raw, unedited, and unfiltered sacred conversations to help women tap into their inner feminine truth to become bold, unshakable, and apologetic in who they truly are. Let's jump into today's sacred conversation. I want to talk to you about being a first generation Latina, a woman of color here in the United States, and also in your late 30s, and how that's come about. I have listened to a few podcasts of other amazing Latina podcasters, but a lot of them are like in your 20s. And I am not in my 20s, obviously. I am in my late 30s, and the experience is completely different, especially if you are a Latina who is single by choice, child free, divorced, and it's not the poster child for the American dream. And that has been a journey that I have navigated for the past years. And just the thought that my parents brought me here to this country when I was 14 to have a better life, and the sacrifices that they made, and the sacrifices that my dad always made, because my dad was always here working in the United States and we were in Mexico. And finally he just decided for us to finally come here and join him. So that was a huge transition when I was 14. And my entire journey has been trying to find who I am. There's times that I feel like no soy de aquí, no soy de allá. I'm not from here, I'm not from there. I don't know where I belong. And I think I grew up with like as a middle child. So I have the middle child kind of syndrome, always not knowing who I am, feeling invisible, feeling unseen, and that I don't belong, that I don't fit in. And I feel that has played a huge role into who I am today. But navigating, coming to a country, not speaking the language, coming to a country where I was completely different. It was a public school. It was a school that was not private. It was not Catholic. It was really an identity shock. I struggle with assimilation. I struggle with integrating myself. I struggle with making friends. I struggle with so much. And my high school experience was not a good one. There was a lot of bullying because I was so different. And I remember there was this time that I was in class, and some guy from my hometown in Mexico, he said to me, "Oh, you're so uptight. Nobody can even tap you in the shoulder because you get so mad." Yeah, like I don't want no one touching me. And he just made me feel like I was so uptight, that I was so different, that nobody liked me, because I started like having all these threats of people, like women wanting to kick my ass. And it was always like this struggle also, like I would eat in the bathroom. There were times that I would eat in the bathroom because I was terrified of going into the cafeteria, because I'm like, people don't like me. I don't understand. I'm just coming here. The only thing I wanted was to get through high school, get good grades, get a scholarship, and go to college and learn English super fast. That was my main goal. And it took me about a year to learn English. And they jumped me from ESL 1, English as a second language, level 1, to ESL level 3 super fast. And I went into regular classes right away with everyone else. And I got a lot of people not liking that. But for me, it was like, I'm just trying to do good in school. I'm just trying to get a scholarship. I'm just trying to mind my own business. But I feel like, besides the cultural the cultural assimilation, sorry, besides trying to fit into a new culture, a new world, new people in a way, and not being able to fit in, there was this huge struggle of Latina women not liking me, Latina women like giving me like mean looks, criticizing me, judging me. And in turn, I eventually started believing what they were saying about me, that I was stuck up, that I was conceited, that I thought I was all that. And I was it's not that I was different. I came from a Catholic private school. I'm thrown into a public school for the first time with no uniforms, a complete different language, so many cultures, so much diversity. I'm in a school with so many people, and my school in Mexico was so tiny. We were like so tiny, and I went to school with the same people from kindergarten to half of eighth grade. And then when I came here, everything, the transition was just so different. And I had a really hard time adapting. And I tried. And I feel like when people put in your head and criticize you and judge you by your cover without getting to know you, you start believing that. You start adapting to that identity of the bitch or the mean, or not the mean, the conceited, the stuck up. And you kind of start believing that that's what you are. And then I remember, because this is the work that I have done like in my 30s about healing my high school experience. Once I become conscious and aware and started doing the healing work and healing my inner child and everything, I'm like, I also need to heal my teenager. I also need to heal my 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old self because of what she went through in high school. So I feel like when people put you in a category and identify you with someone that you don't really feel that you are deep down, you start creating that as your identity because it helps you feel safe. It keeps you protected. It's like wearing this mask of the bitch, wearing this mask of this woman because I know nobody's gonna come near me and I'm not gonna get hurt. Because when people come near me, I get hurt. So you start creating these personas or versions of you or archetypes or masks, however you want to call it, to protect yourself. And that's what I did because for the longest time, I carried that identity from high school throughout my entire life. And when I started doing the healing work around it, I'm like, am I really a bitch if I feel so bad every single time I am that way? Like, am I really that way when deep down I feel horrible? I cry. I feel so much shame and guilt because that's not who I am. Because if people got to know me, they would see that I'm mushy. I am so sensitive. I cried about everything. I have so much love in my heart and I care for so much people. And it took the longest time for me to be vulnerable and to show people how mushy and vulnerable and soft and just soft. That's the word I really am. And we create, even as children, just think about it. We create this mask to protect us, to keep us safe because we are trying to avoid getting hurt. So we start creating this Miss Independent, Miss Perfectionist, Miss I can do it all. I don't need anyone. I got my own back. We become so independent, type A's. We don't need anyone. We can do it all. I don't need a man. I'm so independent. I don't need no help. So we end up going into relationships or situations where we are type A, we're goal getters, hustlers. We do it all. We over function in relationships. So we end up attracting relationships where we are the one doing all the work. We are the one in our masculine energy. We are the ones wearing this mask that is not really us, but we have conditioned and programmed ourselves that that's us. And part of the work that I have been doing on myself, healing my Latina women wound, literally healing my high school experience being bullied, it's like, okay, well, I also contributed to that because I kept the story that, yes, this is me. I don't want anyone coming close to me. I don't want anyone to hurt me. I want to keep people as far away from me as possible. So I kind of like developed this avoidant attachment style with people so nobody can hurt me. When in reality, all I wanted was to be loved. All I wanted was to feel connected. All I wanted was to fit in, was to have a group of friends like in Mexico. And this has been a huge, huge wound of mine because, like I said, I went to kindergarten to half of second grade, first semester of second grade, eighth grade, with the same group of friends. Like it was like five of us, 4 or 5 of us that we had a close, tight friendship since we were little. And I was with those girls like for so many years, and coming to the United States and not finding a group of friends was really hard for me. And I remember even like the first 2 years when I came here, my friends would still write me letters. My friends would still like go around the classroom and everybody would say something about me. And I would write with my friends letters back and forth because at the time there was no email. Well, we didn't have computers, most of us. There was really no email, there was no cell phone. So it's like the old school writing letters, and I would have to wait 2 3 weeks to receive a letter. And in one of the letters, three of my what I thought were my friends, like they wrote me the meanest things, and they said they never really liked me. And I was so heartbroken that I couldn't believe it. I couldn't understand why. I'm like, but we used to play all the time. I used to go to your house all the time. And I realized that I was the one going to their house to play. Nobody really ever came to my house. And I'm like, have I been over functioning in friendships and relationships my entire life? And it was just this, I was kind of like blindsided and I was kind of like in shock. And I'm like, how can they not like me? And I know, no, like, I know I'm nobody's cup of tea. And I know, like, you're not, like, not a lot of people are gonna like you. But I was 15 years old when I read those messages and I just couldn't believe it because I'm like, I have so many memories with you. We were so close. Like we used to have sleepovers. Like it was just, I was like, I'm still in shock saying this because I'm like, how come they never told me? They acted like they liked me. Why would they be fake and a hypocrite about it? So that was like really, really a heartbreak that I had with friendships. And this is at the time that I'm in high school and I'm like, nobody likes me. I don't have any friends. I used to, like I said, I used to eat in the bathroom. I used to go to my social worker's office, Mr. Berger, that was his name. And I used to literally like just make any excuse to be in his office so I could eat lunch. And sometimes I wouldn't even eat. I would go to the library, and it was just such a lonely time. And I think at the time, I had an older brother. He was a year older than me. He didn't even want me sitting with him either because he had like his guy friends and everything. So like I truly felt lonely. I truly felt lonely. In my senior year, I did have one friend. I made a friend, and we used to hang out all the time. You know how you in high school when you have those friends and you end up like dressing alike, but you end up like doing everything together. Well, everybody that knew her, all the Latina women, ended up not talking to her anymore because she was hanging out with me. And that was really hard. And that was really hard for me to understand. And I'm like, but I don't understand. And she's like, I know, I don't either. And I used to take her with me to leadership programs at UIC, University of Illinois in Chicago. I used to take her with me to all like some conference for the National Hispanic Institute leadership programs. I used to like take her everywhere, like all the things that I was doing because I really wanted to succeed. I really wanted to be different in a way that I wanted to get scholarships. I wanted to get ahead. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be someone because my parents brought me here for a reason. So coming here and having that high school experience was really life changing. It kind of set me on a path to want to go to a college that was so far away that nobody knew me, so I can start all over again. So I ended up going to University of Iowa, which was 3.5, 4 hours away from my parents' house. I live in Illinois. And that was another complete different experience because at the same time, here I am trying to fit in and I could never freaking fit in. I can never fit in, you guys. Like it was like I could not belong. I felt so out of place. I felt like an outcast. And at University of Iowa at the time, there were not a lot of Hispanic people there. There were only a few Hispanic people there. And I ended up like I was working at, can you believe I was working at Abercrombie and Fitch at the time. So there was also like my senior year in high school, I dated my first white American boyfriend, and I got so much shit for that. With like everyone started saying that, like how they call you like whitewash. They started just like criticizing me left and right. I was already judged my entire high school career. I mean, career years. But this was a whole new level. So then I started working at Abercrombie. And I think a part of me did have this phase where it's not that I wanted to be a white girl, because I didn't, but I started tanning. I started getting highlights. So my hair was so much lighter. And trust me, it did not look good. I don't know how I thought I looked good. Like, I did not look good. My brown hair is beautiful. I don't know what I was thinking. But I started working at Abercrombie. I started like hanging out with all those girls, and we were used to go to parties all the time. And in a way, it felt like I had a group of friends, but I could not fit in. Like, I could never make much conversation. I always didn't know what to say. I was shy. I'm an introvert too. So go pair that up with trying to fit in and being an introvert and not wanting to talk to people like first. It is, I still have that issue, by the way. I'm still an introvert. I'm still very shy. I still like don't go up to people first. Like, I'm confident, but I don't know. Like, I struggle with networking events and talking to people and small talk. I'm like, no, give me depth and substance. But anyway, so I started working at Abercrombie. I also was working at Menards at the same time. That was my college job, Menards, in the millwork department with windows and doors. And I had this phase that I was just trying to fit in. I was honestly like a chameleon, just trying to fit in. And this is another part of being a codependent too, just trying to change my personalities and adapt so just that I could fit into a group, because I wanted to belong so bad. I already felt like I didn't belong with my family, middle child syndrome, didn't belong in the United States, didn't feel like I was belonging in Mexico anymore, and didn't feel like I belonged here in the United States anymore. Like I said, ni de aquí ni de allá. It felt like so like unstable and uncertain. And I go to university, I don't fit in. So I tried joining a sorority to top this all. And I realized that no, I'm like, I'm not meant to be in a sorority. I'm not going to pay to have friends. And the times that I was in, I didn't exactly do rush week. I was just going to the houses, and I did click with one of the houses in a way. So I got invited to like, we're going to watch this TV show, so come over. So I did, and I just felt the most awkward. I didn't know how to make conversation. I didn't know how to talk to people. Well, it was all women, right? I just didn't know. I felt like so out of place. So I remember one day, oh my gosh, I remember one day I went to a house party, and there was I went by myself because I had no one to go with. My roommate, I was in a dorm, so I had a roommate in the dorms. Like, she ended up, like, I don't know what she was doing that night, but anyway, I went to this house party alone, and when I came back, I was just so alone. And I remember in my floor, there were so many women, and I didn't drink at the time. I didn't drink. I was 19. I didn't drink at the time. And one night I decided to drink, and I had a shot. And of course, I got a little tipsy on one shot, and I ended up going to a bar with all the women in my friends or the people that I knew, my acquaintances, I guess, in my floor were. And I get there, and they see that I'm a little tipsy. And the first thing that they say is like, "Oh my gosh, Mary drinks now. Now she can hang out with us." And at the time it didn't register But years later, when I started doing the healing work, I'm like, I cannot believe they said that to me. Now I was finally good enough for them to hang out with me because I was drinking now. I was drinking alcohol now. So now I fit in with them. And I do regret letting myself go in the party scene in college and enjoying those moments when I should have been putting all my time, effort, and energy in studying. And what happened, what ended up happening in us, and that's just to summarize a little bit my college experience because there's a lot to unpack there. I ended up I ended up having a boyfriend, and he was my college sweetheart, David. And I remember I came to see him. He had already graduated. So he was here in Illinois. And I remember I came to, it was the weekend of my parents' wedding anniversary. It was July 4th. And I wanted to surprise my parents. I mean, July 3rd, sorry. I wanted to surprise my parents. And I remember I went to his house with his parents. His parents adore me. Every time I went there, his mom, his dad adore me. Like, I was so happy in that relationship. I was like, okay, I'm gonna come over. I'm gonna stay there because then the next day I'm gonna go and surprise my parents for their wedding anniversary. Well, I ended up fainting 4 times, and I ended up being taken to the ER because I was unconscious. Like, I would wake up from fainting, and I would get up, and I would like kind of like try to gather myself, and I would try to walk a few steps, and I would faint again. So finally, my boyfriend and his parents take me to the ER, and I'm there in a wheel. All I remember is I was there in a wheelchair. I was unconscious. Obviously, they called my parents. Everybody comes, and so I lose my ovary. And obviously, they give you all these guidelines, and they're like, you when you go back to school, you cannot carry your backpack, you cannot do this, you cannot walk so much. So I go back to school. Well, no, when I'm still at the hospital, like I'm high in morphine. I'm freshly out of the operating room. And obviously, I reached out to what I thought were my friends from Abercrombie and Fitch and people that I knew. And I told them what had happened. Nobody said anything to me. When I went back to school, nobody came to say hi to me. Nobody came to visit me. Nobody came to help me. And the only person that came, it was a girl that was in my class, Maria. I still talk to her. I'm still friends with her and her sisters. She's the only person literally that came to visit me. And I had just literally briefly exchanged a few words with her, and we exchanged notes, and she's the only person that came to see me. So after that situation happened, I realized that those people who I thought were my friends were not my friends. They were just not my friends. So I kind of stepped away from that. I ended up obviously quitting Abercrombie and Fitch. And I actually, my story with Abercrombie and Fitch is so weird because I don't know, there was a few years ago, like around 2005, 2006, 7, there was a lawsuit against Abercrombie and Fitch for discrimination. Well, I was part of the lawsuit and I actually got some money from them. But anyway, I ended up quitting that job, and obviously I ended up graduating. I came back home. But coming back to where this all ties in, it's been a first generation Latina coming here to the United States for the American dream. And obviously I graduated. I got my bachelor's degree from University of Iowa, and not feeling excited about the workforce, not feeling the pull to climb up the ladder, hating corporate. I ended up having a job that was so draining. I was so burnt out. And fast forward a few years, and this is why it's so important for me to tell my story, because I don't want women to waste their 20s dating, trying to find their husband, trying to find the love of their life, and getting married and having a family. I mean, it's your choice. But if I had someone to tell me or to teach me everything that I know now, I wish I would have started this journey of healing in my 20s. I wish I would have started being awakened, being aware of trauma, being aware of inner child healing, being aware of what I'm aware today, it would have saved me so much time, because I have spent over probably 15 years in trying to date, trying to find my person, trying to focus and prioritize dating when I should have been prioritizing my career, when I should have been prioritizing other things. I ended up, after college, I broke up with my college sweetheart, David. It was one of the best relationships, but it ended up that he had a drug problem that I was not aware of for our entire relationship. It was hidden from me. And when I found out that he had OD'd and he had this drug problem and he refused to go to rehab, I walked away from that relationship. I was blindsided. I didn't know. I was so naive at the time, because I was never really around people who did drugs, so I didn't know like how the side effects, and I only spent with him like one semester after, and then he graduated and came back home, so I would only see him periodically, like once in a while on weekends, or when he would go and visit me, and it was never really around me. I knew like he like smoked pot, and I just asked not to do that around me, so he never did, but I didn't know he did other stuff, and stuff that I never even heard of before, which is what he OD'd on. And when I asked him to go to rehab, my dad asked him to go to rehab, he said he didn't need to. And I walked away from that. And that was really hard. And because I was happy. So after that, I ended up falling into relationships that were abusive, emotionally abusive, they were toxic. And obviously, like at the time, I didn't know much about it. I just thought it was because of me. I just thought, because obviously they blame everything on you and turn everything around that it's your fault. And I ended up honestly falling for those types of relationships for many years, one after the other, thinking that I was going to find my soulmate, when I should have been focusing on my career, focusing on a job, focusing on so many things. But what happened? This is what happened. I left the last emotionally abusive relationship in 2015, and that was with a public figure. And that was the one that, not that I'm going to say he didn't change my life, I changed my life. But that ending of that relationship, and after I left, a year after I left, is when I found out that I had been emotionally abused, psychologically abused, verbally abused, spiritually abused, financially abused. I found out that I had been in this, what they call narcissistic abusive relationship. I never knew about it. I found out that I was codependent, and then I found out so much stuff. So through my whole journey, I started healing. And when I was still in that relationship, I walked away for 6 months, because it took so many times for me to walk away from that man. It was very on and off, obviously very toxic. I thought everything was my fault because I was jealous, I was possessive, I was controlling, but it's because of so much things that I would see online. And he would always say, "Oh, it's just my fan. It's a picture with a fan." When I was like, "No, I don't mind pictures with your fans, but you're always telling me that this girl used to like you. Like, what's going on?" And things wouldn't add up. So there was a lot of infidelity. There was a lot of betrayals that I later did find out. I had evidence and everything. But in those relationships that are very abusive, there's a lot of gaslighting, there's a lot of coercive control, there's a lot of manipulation, there's a lot of so much that I couldn't understand. I'm like, if you are commenting and liking all these women that are so sexy and so much like this, why are you dating me when I look nothing like that? I am so different. I just couldn't understand. And he also, like, I was hidden from everyone in that relationship. He would never post about me. And it was like that relationship was just so chaotic, so much that I actually do have a podcast about this in my other podcast, Feminine Truth Podcast, where I've talked more about this. But in essence, I leave this relationship, I start doing the healing work. But like I said, when I was in that relationship, actually, let's digress to that. When I was in that relationship, I left for 6 months. And during those 6 months is when I read a book called Women That Love Too Much by Robin Norwood. And when I read that book, I realized that our upbringing and our childhood has to do with the people that we attract, but I kind of like internalized everything that it was because of me, because I was codependent. I still kind of didn't really realize that I was being emotionally abused. And when I left those 6 months, I was so lost. I was at rock bottom. I was heartbroken. So I started working out. I started losing weight because I had gained 15 pounds in that relationship, 15, 20 pounds from eating so much junk food, beer, and all the things. And I started working out. I lost so much weight. And then I was like, okay, like I want to feel confident in the gym. I want to be able to lift weights. So I ended up hiring a personal trainer. And that personal trainer was doing fitness competitions. So then I started like getting into that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to compete. That's going to be my goal. So I started training for a competition. In those 6 months that I left, like I did not have contact with him. I deleted social media, everything. So when my comeback happened, I had a six pack. I was fit. I was thinner. Felt so good about myself. I started feeling more empowered. I was still very heartbroken. There was still a lot of me, a lot of pain inside of me because I was only addressing my weight. I was only addressing kind of like my physical appearance change. I was not addressing the inner work because I had no idea about the inner work. And at this time I also like had a therapist, so like it was more like a cognitive behavioral therapist, which is like changing your behavior, but like there was nothing to tell me about my upbringing, my core wounds, my unmet needs, my patterns, my toxic traits that I also had within myself, what I brought into the relationship and things like that. Like I had no idea. And I had no one to guide me. I wish I would have had someone like me at that time that would have helped me navigate this faster. I had to learn all of this to trial and error, reading books, buying courses, hiring people, like diving deep into all this healing work. And I see this man again at a concert. I went to a concert with my friend and I ended up bumping into him at that concert. I think it was Moenia. Yeah, it was the group Moenia that came, and some other groups, but Moenia was key because I like Moenia. And I ended up honestly like bumping into him. He was begging for me and I just kept like telling him no. So little by little, he sucked me back in by using his daughter. And I loved his daughter. And I met her from the ages of 4 to like she was 8. That's when I left for good. And I went back. I went back. I believed in the promises. I believed in all of that. And it was it's one of those relationships that if you have never been in those type of relationships, you will never understand why people stay, why women don't leave. There was a lot of trauma bonding already in that relationship. I thought I couldn't live without him too at some part of me, but it was a lot of the chemical bonds to the brain rewiring that happens in those relationships. So when I finally left for good, it took a lot of times for me to leave that relationship. But when I left for good, I really started doing the healing work. So that's when I realized that it had been an emotionally abusive relationship. There was multiple betrayals, affairs, emotional affairs, like all types of affairs. And that was like horrible for me to deal with. Like I couldn't understand why. And the issue that I had is that I didn't love myself. I didn't know my worth and value. I had this man in a pedestal instead of having me in a pedestal. And after that, my entire journey, when once I started feeling better, once I started healing, once I started learning how to take my power back, once I started learning codependency, narcissistic abuse, once I started learning how to start healing to take your power back and never go back, I was like, I want to help women also with this. I want to help women never deal with what I dealt, because I also ended up with a lot of health issues from that relationship. And that's exactly what happened. This is why where I am today, that I launched myself eventually as a life coach. I took some programs, I got certified, and what ended up happening is that I started telling my story. I started sharing my story. So this man, obviously, he was a public figure, but I never mentioned his name. That is one thing that I love about me, that I can share my experiences, I can share my stories publicly. I can share what I've been through, but I will never drop names. I will never share names because that's not who I am. And it's not about them. They're not important. What's important is what I went through. What's important is how I heal from it. And what's important is my why, which is helping women heal from things that I have gone through. And after that, obviously, it took so many years for me to heal. I also met someone, I got married with that person. That was not an abusive relationship. That didn't end up working. So once I finally got all those years behind me, I came to the point that I was in my late 30s. And oh, this is so emotional. I was in my late 30s and I realized that I wasted so many years in men, in relationships that were abusive, emotionally abusive. I wasted so many years trying to find love because I wanted someone to love me because I didn't love myself. I wanted to feel worthy, and I felt I attached my worth and value to a relationship. And obviously, I come from a culture that prioritizes marriage and children, having a family over anything. So there was also that part of me. But then I was also raised with that. I was also raised with the conditioning and programming of you have to learn how to cook, you have to learn how to clean. Since you are little, you are kind of brought up with that conditioning and programming. They don't tell you this is, we're going to train you so you can get married. No, it kind of comes in the culture that you learn all those skills: how to knit, how to crochet, how to wash dishes, how to wash clothes by hand, because we didn't have a washer and dryer in Mexico. And you come to realize that you also didn't fulfill that dream. But like I said, I was also raised with this belief: you gotta be independent, you don't need a man, get a career, make your own money. And I there was this inner conflict within me that I thought, and then I felt that love and a relationship and getting married was going to be a priority for me, and that should be center, focus and center. But I also had this inner conflict that I also wanted to be a career woman. And growing up with in having an anxious attachment and codependency, obviously I shifted toward prioritizing men and relationships, and I wasted, and I say this because it is true, I wasted so many years in those dead end relationships. Yes, there were lessons learned. They made me who I am today, and I'm grateful for that. But I can still feel the regret. I can still feel that I wish I would have had someone to guide me in my late, like, teens, in my, before I was 20, of what was important. I wish I would have had a life coach. I wish there would have been classes about how to become an empowered woman, how to love yourself, how to know your worth and value, because they tell you, oh, know your worth and value, date tu lugar, know your standards, but they don't really teach you how. It's like they just think like you automatically know. It's like, no, you need to tell me how to do that, because I don't know how to love myself. And growing up, not seeing a woman loving herself, I didn't have that programming conditioning. And this is something that it took me years to learn. It took me years to learn. And now there were times that I would see, and I still see, like, women that are obviously in their 20s who are doing this work, their shadow work, their inner child healing, their a lot, the polarity of their feminine and masculine energies, who are doing this work of of knowing their own power, focusing in their career, their finances in their early 20s. And there was a part of me that one day I felt very triggered by that. And it's because I was jealous. I was envious and jealous that I wish that would have been me and I wouldn't be here in my late 30s wishing that was me. And kind of like beating myself up because I wish I would have had a role model. I wish I would have had someone to guide me. I have an older sister, but she was not a guide for me because she left to the Marines. So she was doing her own life. My older brother also left for the Marines and he was doing his own life. I left for college and I have a younger sibling who I kind of like abandoned and I left. And this whole journey has been, how do I come back to me? And I'm like, but I don't even know who I am. And I literally had to start from scratch. Who am I? What do I like? This is so sentimental because I didn't even know that, because I was conditioned to like what he liked. I was conditioned because I didn't know these things, and you think like, how can you not know? You're so intelligent. You're so smart. Yes, I didn't know. Okay. And I had to learn how to create my foundation of who is Mary, what are her belief systems, what does she stand up for, what are her standards, what are her values. Does she even believe in Catholicism? That's when I realized that I don't. And this was like at 18 that I never really aligned with the religion. So I walked away from that. I don't consider myself religious. I'm still healing from religious trauma. I'm still healing from Catholicism, wounding, and so many other things, because that ties to sexuality and being shamed for it and so much stuff. But I had to find out what's my favorite color, what's my favorite food, what do I like, what do I desire. And part of me, it's like, this is so embarrassing. And I have so much shame that I was in my mid 30s. It was kind of like when I was 34, 35 when I started doing this work more than anything. But now coming to this place today that I'm almost 40, and I'm owning this because there has been a lot of shame. I'm like, if people only knew how long it took me to find my true self, how long it took me to be in my truth and power, how long it took me to truly know my worth and value, to choose myself, to know my standards, to know my values, to know how to honor myself, to know how I am the focus, that I'm in the pedestal, to have a voice, to be bold, unapologetic, to be strong, to lead myself, to be in my sovereignty, to be emotionally intelligent, which is always a work in progress. I'm still working on that. To feel confident, to set boundaries, to not be afraid to set boundaries, especially with family members, which is always a work in progress, by the way. To walk away from relationships, to know exactly what I desire in a relationship, to know that I don't want children, to know that I chose myself and walked away from a marriage that wasn't for me, even though I still care for him, to reconnect with my womb, to heal a lot of trauma that I had in my my uterus, to heal the rage, the anger, the shame, the guilt, the regret, the hate, all those heavy emotions. It took me so long to rewire my nervous system, to heal my attachment, which it's always a work in progress, because I feel amazing right now because I'm single. I feel great, but the real work comes in once I'm back in a partnership, the attachment style especially, and all the work that I have done. But right now, my journey has been about choosing to be single, decentering men, owning this part of my journey, owning the fact that I cannot be ashamed of that it's taken me so long for me to come to this place that I love and adore who I am, and I love myself, and I'm so proud of me. I love my inner child. I love every single version of me, even those versions of me that attracted those men. And it's taken also, and this is the biggest one that hurts to a lot of people, and it hurts me and my ego, taking the ownership and accountability that I also was at fault at some level for attracting those men because of everything, on the unhealed wounding, my unmet needs, my codependency, how I was brought up, the abandonment wounding that I always had, my experience here in the United States, always trying to fit in and belong, and so many factors that go into play that shape who you are. And it's come a long way for me to be proud of my journey while still feeling okay with regretting things, with and then when that inner critic comes in and I beat myself up, which is literally self-abuse and bullying, to come in with grace and compassion and forgive myself for that. And I feel like the biggest thing for me has been forgiving myself for so much. And I don't believe that you have to forgive the other person. I believe the self-forgiveness is the most powerful tool. You don't have to forgive everyone that has hurt you. As long as you forgive yourself and you have that inner peace, and know that it's okay to not forgive someone, especially if they don't deserve it. But I am at peace with that decision, that's the closure that you need. And that's what my journey has been about. And what I'm trying to get at with this episode, because I kind of told you my whole life story in a way, very short, like a 1 hour episode, it's that everything brought me to not being the poster child for the American dream. And I had so much shame around this because I'm like, okay, my parents brought me here for the American dream to have success. And where I ended up finding myself in my late 30s is like, that's not even where I am. I am so far from that. So I have to pull back the layers and pull everything, delayer myself in a way, and be okay knowing my worth and value is not attached to any achievement. And this is for my women who are perfectionists, hustlers, go-getters, independent, that we attach our worth and value, significance, and deservingness to our achievements, to what we have achieved, the success, the money, the career, the apartment, the marriage. And when I realized that I was nowhere near close, and that I needed to do work to not attach my worth and value to those things, because I was nowhere near them, and that I was worthy and valuable because of me. I was significant because of me, because of all the things that I have done to be who I am today. And it's taken a lot. And for me, my biggest achievement, it is not anything that I have accomplished. There is no career. There's no monetary achievement. There's no house. There is no marriage. There's no children. There is no making my parents proud. But for me, what I feel the most fulfilled and what I have achieved the most is that I finally got myself not back, because I never really had me, but I finally created who I am proud of. I finally created this version of me, who I am today, that I love so much in body, mind, and soul. I know my worth. I know my value. I feel so happy and fulfilled with who I am, and I'm still healing. And I feel like every time you meet someone new, either that person triggers something within you that you have to heal, or not, or maybe that person inspires you to be someone even better than you already are. But for me, my biggest achievement has been that I'm worthy and valuable simply because of who I am, my heart, how I feel, my empathy, my sensitivity, my how much I care about things. And even though I do have this resting bitch face exterior, and I'm still working on softening that so I can allow people in, because I still wear that mask because I'm so afraid of people getting close to me and getting hurt. So still this part of me that is like, oof, we're still afraid of getting hurt. We're still afraid because we are so used to be judged by our cover. You know, you judge a book by its cover without getting to read and know the inside. And it's always been my experience. And for me, it's like, it's okay. It's okay. One day at a time, one person at a time, you can soften. You can soften. And when you are still healing from SA, from grape, from being sexually harassed, um, there's still that fear. And this is something that happened in my 30s. And in childhood, obviously, there was SA. So there's a lot of things that are still revealing, are still being healed. And it's not something that I'm like going looking to heal. There's just something that it's coming as the days go by, depending on what is coming through within me. But actively healing the SA trauma, actively healing any type of sexual trauma, also allows you to feel more safe within your body. And if you feel safe with who you are and with your body, and you are feeling safe being seen, being heard, and you feel safe opening up to people and opening your heart and softening the resting bitch face, because I feel that for me is like a facade. It's kind of like a mask. And I've talked about this before, and I share this with friends all the time, that I'm like, it's just a facade. It's just a facade. And I'm still working on softening those rough edges and those walls, and being okay with people getting to know the real me, that I'm not going to be rejected, that I'm not going to be abandoned, that I'm not going to be hurt. And if I am, it's because those people were not my people. You know, it's kind of like those things. But I am glad that I got this out of my chest, and then I share a little bit about my journey. um, I'm hoping that somebody out there has a similar story than me, resonates with me, being okay with letting go of the guilt, of the shame of not achieving the American dream, of waking up in your late 30s and realizing that your worth and value, you have been attaching it to something you have achieved, and you have to do. You have to receive a degree, you have to get married, what society says. And when you don't fit into societal expectations, and you're not the poster child of the American dreams that your parents sacrificed so much to bring you here to achieve that, it can take a toll on a lot of people. But when you do the healing work to release the shame and the guilt, and just that feeling of not making your parents proud, and knowing that, and being at peace with that, and knowing that the best achievement that you've had is that you found yourself, is that you know who you are, is that you will never get into those types of relationships again, is that you know your boundaries, you honor yourself, the focus is you're in a pedestal, you love yourself, you know who you are in body, mind, and soul. You're back into your feminine truth, you're back into who you really are. And that for me makes you so worthy and valuable. And they say you're worthy and valuable just because of you are, because you deserve it, because that's your innate birthright. But a lot of times you don't know how that feels. Like, you don't know how to embody that. And when you come to the place of healing so much, and you're like, yes, my parents sacrificed so much to bring me here. My parents gave up so much. They worked so hard for me to go to college, for me to have this life. And here I am, not, I don't amount to anything. That's crossed my mind so many times. But then when I turn around and I'm like, okay, I wish things would have been different. I wish I would have gone to a different school. I wish I would have done so many other things. But I can't keep wishing that, because it's never gonna change. The past is already written, it's never gonna change. And being okay with letting that story go, and grieve it and overcome it, and realize that you are here for much more. And a lot of people don't reach success until like their 40s. There's so many people who have done so many extraordinary things, in their late 40s, in their 50s. So it's never too late. And this is something that I have to remind myself constantly. Okay, you're almost 40, you are at this place, and you launch a beautiful podcast, this podcast, you launch the other podcast, you launch your business, you have a social media presence, you want to help women. Your why is helping women. Your why is also your nieces and your nephew. Your why is for them not to ever go through what you did. And that for me is priceless. That makes me feel happy and fulfilled. And I'm still working. I'm still on this journey. And I'm excited to share more about this. But if this resonated with any of you, please reach out to me. Leave a review, leave a comment. I want to know if there's more women who have gone through similar journeys and stories, because here I know I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I know I am not alone in this, that there's more women that probably have gone through similar experiences than me. And the biggest payoff is you returning back to who you are. It's a path of remembrance. Can't wait to see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation on the Feminine Truth Podcast. This podcast is for you, for me, for us, for the Feminine Collective. Thank you for spending your time and energy with us. I so appreciate it. Please, it would mean so much if you could share this in your Instagram stories, in your Facebook stories, or everywhere, so this message gets spread and others can find this podcast and this conversation. And if you feel like someone needs to hear this message, please share with them. I would be so grateful for you, and let us know your thoughts, how this has helped you, how you connected with this topic, or how this has felt in your body. And lastly, if you feel the pull, I would be immensely grateful if you could take the time to leave a review so more people can find my podcast and this conversation. I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you on the next episode.